So welcome everyone to the meeting of the Senior Management Appointment Committee on Thursday, the 3rd of November 2022. I'm Councillor Liz Burnett, and as leader of the council, I chair this meeting. The meeting will be broadcast live. There are no part 2 items, so the entire meeting will be live streamed, and it will be recorded for later viewing should people so wish. If anyone wants to speak, if you could indicate by raising your hand on screen, or by using the sort of digital hand up function, that would be great. And if we could keep the chat function purely for alerting myself or Democratic Services officers to any issues, any technical issues, that would be really helpful. So without further ado, we will move on to the agenda. And part 1 for the agenda is apologies for absence. I don't think we have any, looking at everybody around the meeting. So no, we're all here. Agenda item 2 is minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of October 2022. Can I take those as an accurate reflection of the meeting?
Yeah, happy to second those as well.
Thank you, Bronwyn. And everyone else is happy, I'm taking it, no dissent. So agenda item 3, have we got any declarations of interest under the council's code of conduct? I don't, and I can't see any hands up, so I'm taking it that we don't. So moving on then to agenda item 4, and this is a report of the Director of Corporate Resources. It's recruitment and selection arrangements for the Head of Internal Audit Service, and I believe that's going to go over to you, Matt, to introduce the report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just a brief introduction to this report. I'm hoping it's relatively straightforward. We've had the shared service with Rhondda, Cynon, Taff, Merthyr, Bridgend and ourselves in place for a couple of years now, and it's progressing very well. Regretfully, the current head of service has given me relatively early notice of intention to retire on the 31st of March next year. So I'm bringing this report forward to seek approval to recruit his replacement. I think if we go ahead with that today, we've got every chance of having a replacement in before Mark leaves at the end of March. And hopefully having a little bit of handover. The service over the last year, the main priority has been bringing it up to full establishment, and we've had, quite in contrast to some of the other recruitment taking place across the council, a successful recruitment campaign over the summer. So the service is now broadly up to full establishment. Some of the benefits you do have from having such a shared service is it enables you to have some specialist roles in the service. And one of the roles we have successfully recruited to over the summer is an IT auditor. We've also made a number of appointments to graduate posts, so a strategy of growing our own, and certainly one area we do find a challenge to recruit to in finance are qualified accountants, so a really good strategy. I've naturally discussed the recruitment with my colleagues at the partner authority, so the Section 151 officers at Bridgend, Merthyr, Rhondda, Cynon, Taff, and they're all very much behind the need to recruit on a like-for-like basis. At these times, it is always right that we ask the question, should we be having like-for-like, or do we need to have alternative arrangements? But unanimous and fully supportive of the paper that you have in front of you this afternoon. So that's all I'd like to say in introduction, but happy to take any questions, and if we do have any questions of detail, I do also have Mark Thomas with me this afternoon. Thank you.
if I can open that up to committee with any queries at all. Ian.
Thanks, Leader. Thank you, Matt, for the explanation there. It's not so much a query regarding the report. It's more an institutional memory, which you might not have, Matt, and neither might Mark either, which is really around the what lessons we learned from the recruitment process in late 2018. And sort of the way in which that was held as a multi-authority process, and sort of how we how effectively we feel that can be managed as we go forward. I think Liz was on the panel which appointed Mark back in late 2018, and I remember there being sort of discussion at the time around different pressures being put upon the service by the different authorities, which is a very new post as it was being brought into place for 2019-20. So really, it's just I'm just looking for a little bit of. It's difficult to know exactly what's going to happen with this, because it's the first time we've redone this process amongst 4 different authorities. But I was looking as to what attention has been paid to what went well or not so well in the process when it took place in 2018-19. Hope that makes sense as a query, Matt.
Yeah, I think Mark's going to come in and I suppose give you his own experience from the receiving end a little bit as well. But if I'm happy to come in and say a little bit about what the process will look like going forward, and how we're looking to bring the partner organisations into that process as well. But I'll hand over to Mark first.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, and thanks, Councillor Johnson. Yeah, I was on the receiving end of the process, so I probably have a slightly different recollection. But Councillor Johnson, you were actually on the Senior Management Appointments Committee when I was appointed, and anyway. Yes, I think it's more or less following the same process. The main difference is last time, because it was a service that was being increased in size then, at the time, it was agreed at that point to keep the advertisement internal to the 4 authorities in the first instance, and subject to finding somebody suitable, that option to go external was there at that time. This time, because there's no perhaps obvious candidates, or it is felt that it would be worthwhile sort of seeing what the market is looking like. Like it was agreed unanimously that the post be advertised externally and internally at the same time, and obviously that will speed up the process as well. But otherwise, last time the chairs of the audit committees at that time were involved in the process. The Section 151 officers were all involved in the process, and then obviously the Senior Managers Appointments Committee also then did the final interview and made the final decision. So essentially, I think that was found to work fit fairly well. So I think that was the general view amongst certainly the officers that were involved at that time. So I don't know if that answers your question, really, Councillor Johnson.
We do have colleagues from HR at the meeting as well, so I don't know if they would like to come in. I have just, whilst they possibly think about that, I've naturally been engaging with the chairs of the audit committees already, so I've given them the heads up that this report's coming here this afternoon, and obviously we'll then work through all the logistics of putting those arrangements in place. One thing to feed back is around the grade of the post, and certainly it's a little bit higher than were we just recruiting for a local an individual manager. And for that reason, we are relatively confident of getting a good response to the advert. I don't know if Matthew or possibly Kim want to come in and say a couple of words about the process last time, and whether there's anything that can be learned from that.
Hi there. Yeah, thank you for bringing me in, Matt. Yes, I think there will be some elements of learning to go forward with this, and I think that we need to establish the questions and the role functions with everybody that are involved. So I think hearing the feedback from Mark is quite a relief, but there are definitely things that perhaps we can manage the process moving forward for the candidates on that day.
Thank you. Actually, I think that it's very constructive that we are going to fully involve our partners. You know, when this is a post that goes across the authorities, and I believe that we did that last time as well. Yes, I was on the committee in with you, and I just had a little look. Actually, it was Councillor Penrose at that time, but as we weren't in the administration, it was chaired by Councillor Thomas and Vice Chair of Councillor Jarvie at that time. So yes, it was interesting, and it's always interesting when you're appointing something which is a shared service, but with something which we are doing increasingly now, that we're working collaboratively. And we've had ones between ourselves and the health board, and we've had other such appointments as well. So it's good to work with others. Was there anybody else that wanted to come in terms of commenting?
Sorry, Liz, it's Matthew from HR. Just on Matt's point that the Chief Officer Pay Award was agreed. So this advert will be going out with the new pay award, which will increase salary and look even more attractive than previously. And in terms of the assessment, just to echo Kim's and Mark's and Matt's comments, I remember it was very exhaustive. The exercises that we put the candidates through, I'm sure they will be again, and people who are at the back, there might not be that many people to remember what happened at the SMAC. If there is any feedback you can provide.
It'd be interesting to know what we did with the assessment documentation back then, to see whether or not there was anything that came out of that. But I think that Mark's experience will prove to be absolutely invaluable in terms of what was relevant and what wasn't relevant, and so what we should be looking at in terms of recruiting a successor. We don't always have that luxury of having the sort of incumbent available to help us to understand how we find the most appropriate person. Mark, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, just to echo what Matt said, really, it was quite demanding, quite grueling. So just to sort of confirm that one. My main point was really the psychometric testing. I don't know whether we've updated that process. That was the one bit that I didn't think worked particularly well. I obviously got through it somehow or other, but I didn't feel it was the best sort of process ever. So maybe worth a conversation with organisational development just to see if that's improved. But otherwise, it was, I think it was definitely testing process, and it made people think and put people under time pressure and so on. So I think, most of it could be repeated from my perspective, even though I probably wouldn't want to go through it again.
But you are still smiling. I'm not going to ask why, but no, that's super. Ian, you wanted to come back in?
Just very quickly, I think it was mentioned by Matt earlier that that Mark will be leaving us at the end of March, so the end of this financial year, and the hope is that this process, by starting in the start of November, will allow us to have somebody in nominated, or hopefully even in post, by the time we get into the new financial year. So I'm just checking that in timescale, and it does feel, I don't know if Mark would agree, but it's been a very quick 3.5 years, sort of since you took over that role. Obviously very strange with the way that the world turned upside down after the first year. But I don't know if this is the right place, but I'd like to thank him for his time and effort in that post. The last 3.5 years. Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Thanks, Ian. I think that would be echoed by us all. But hopefully we'll have other times to pass on our thanks as well, particularly if it's in person, Mark. That would be better, wouldn't it?
Yes. Thank you.
So I can't see any other hands up at the moment. If there aren't any other comments, I suppose we can move on to the recommendations for today, and I will go through them rather than just saying that as laid out. So the first one is that the Senior Management Appointment Committee approve that the post of Head of Regional Internal Audit Service is advertised internally and externally, as we said. The Senior Management Appointment Committee approved the job description, which is Appendix A, and person specification at Appendix B, and I have checked, in respect of the post of Head of the Regional Internal Audit Service. 3, that the Senior Management Appointment Committee delegates authority to Head of Finance to undertake the initial long/short listing and assessment of applicants in consultation with the Leader and Director of Corporate Resources and the Section 151 officers in the partner authority. So that's where we involve them. 4, that the Senior Management Appointment Committee approve the proposal that the Chair or Vice Chair of the Governance and Audit Committees from each of the partner authorities be invited to take part in the assessment process. 5, that the Senior Management Appointment Committee note that Section 151 officers from the partner authorities will be involved in the assessment day to ensure that their opinions may be considered by this committee. And 6, and finally, that the Senior Management Appointment Committee note that depending on the outcome of the assessment process, a further meeting of the Senior Management Appointment Committee be convened to interview and determine the suitability of candidates for appointment to the post. And I would move those recommendations.
Happy to second those, Liz.
Thank you, Bron. Ian, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Leader. Just for clarification for anyone watching, just there's a lot of names and people mentioned within those recommendations. So the leader in recommendation 3, the leader is yourself. The Director of Corporate Resources is Tom Bowering. Section 151 officers are the relevant financial officers in each of the partner authorities. Then the chairs of the Governance and Audit Committees under the new legislation are all independent. So they're not party political, any of those people, and then it's going to come back to this committee, which obviously is a cross-party committee that represents the different groups in the Vale of Glamorgan. Yeah.
I think we have to clarify that the names put to those titles are at the moment. You never know.
Yes.
So if all remains the same, those are the names that go with those titles.
Great. Thanks.
Super. Thank you. So are we all happy with that? Yeah, everyone seems fine. So yes, we've agreed those recommendations, and we will go forward with the process to appoint the head of Regional Internal Audit Service. So thank you all for your attendance today, and I'll see you all when we've got more people to appoint.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.